Good afternoon, Shindo here. I am going to be reading an op-ed from RT, that's Russia Today. Gives you a clear indication of where we are as American citizens with regards to how to get any unbiased news that I am going to Russia Today, which is essentially an arm of the Kremlin. It is essentially state-sponsored media, but in this article, this is a more fair and balanced portrayal of what's going on in Syria. So, to the article, this is from RT. If you like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Click like on my videos. I get enough thumbs down, folks. I need those thumbs up. Comment like an adult. And share my videos. Okay. RT. U.S. defeat in Syria would mark, quote, end of America's unilateral movement, unquote. Many think the global situation will change as new leadership arrives in Washington, but that is not necessarily true. In fact, U.S. foreign policy rarely changes with new presidents. Independent researcher and writer Sorya Sepapor Ulrich told RT. With almost 70% of rebel-held territory in the Syrian city of Aleppo liberated by government forces, according to Russia's defense ministry, many are wondering what will happen next to the embattled Syria, pulled as it is in a tug-of-war between competing forces. RT. The militants in Aleppo have already lost 70% of their territory. Is that battle for Aleppo a done deal now, or is there any hope left for the militants? Ulrich. I would love to say that it is a done deal, but it's not done until it is done, until it's 100%. From the way I see it, from what I have read here, from what I listened to, America and allies will not give up. They have not given up. One may be under the impression that things will change as different presidents take office or they reside in the White House, but that is not the case. U.S. foreign policy doesn't change with presidents, regardless what they say during their campaigns. Unfortunately, the battle for Aleppo will not be over because America and its allies have not achieved their objectives. As long as they've not done that, they are going to continue one way or another. Regrettably, that is what I think, and I hope that I am wrong. Well, my opinion, that is Shindo, my opinion, I'm not reading from the article, is that yes, there will be a change with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not like any other president we've ever had. This man is going to be considered by the world as a brilliant and wonderful, wonderful diplomat. The world is going to see him in this way. Now, I have made it quite clear who and what Donald Trump is, and I'm not going to be getting into that in every single video I do, just because I'm mentioning his name. I will say that normally, yes, foreign policy, especially in the Middle East, does not change from one president to another. But it will change with this president dramatically. RT. Is there any support for, quote, moderate opposition forces likely to just prolong the suffering of civilians? SSU. Most definitely, but I think America has reached the point where it doesn't even know who is a so-called moderate terrorist or the actual hardcore terrorist. She's right there. America no longer distinguishes between them, and its allies cannot either. And the allies I'm talking about are the regional Arab states. Of course, Europe has a hand in it, and Israel continues to strike inside sovereign Syria. So the situation is only going to escalate. The more desperate they get, the more reactionary they are getting. And while they may be running out of, quote, moderate terrorists, or maybe the, quote, moderate terrorists want to stop the fight, the plans that are still on the table, America will not concede, nor will its allies in Syria until they're virtually kicked out. I don't agree. Normally she'd be spot on with this, but I don't agree. And I believe, and I've made this prediction before, what does Donald Trump have? Maybe 6 weeks before he takes office. 6 weeks before he takes office. But I truly believe that sometime, probably shortly after Christmas, within that week afterwards, maybe before the end of the year, that he is at the very least going to go over there and lay a foundation for peace. Peace in the Middle East, folks. Yes, I'm believing something that dramatic is going to happen. RT, on Wednesday, the leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the UK, and US issued a joint statement condemning the actions of the Syrian government and its allies. Of course, Russia being considered one of those allies. What do you think of the timing of that, SSU? It's mind-boggling that the foreign-backed terrorists in Syria are under reprieve because President Assad is fighting them with help from Russia, Iran, and even China is so much involved now. The so-called free world, the world that is fighting terrorists, supposedly is outraged that the terrorists are being beaten. It is mind-boggling to anybody with the smallest bit of common sense. It also shows the fear that the so-called free world is feeling because when President Assad of Syria, along with his partners in this fight, do prevail, that means the end of American hegemony in the end, or the end of international system as we know it. New World Order's coming, folks. It would no longer be America demanding or imposing its will on nations because it's going to fail eventually at a huge cost, I'm afraid. But it is the end of unilateral movement with the U.S. and international system would change. That is why a lot of allies who are complicit in this horrendous act of terror, war, and genocide are panicking because their time is up as well. Boy, amen to that. Let me tell you, she's hit the nail right on the head with that one. I'm telling you this as an American. As an American who has respect and honor for what this country was supposedly based on and stands for. It's sad to see what this country has become, especially in this region of the Middle East. Now, when she says here that it's mind-boggling to anyone with the smallest bit of common sense as to why in the world Russia and the Assad regime is being attacked because they're going after terrorists, well, it's not mind-boggling, and I am sure if she's an expert in the region, she knows exactly why the United States is against Russia and Assad going after these terrorists, because those terrorists were at one time backed by the United States of America. This is what America has always done in the region, and that is to cause constant civil strife, constant civil war. It is good for America's interest to make sure that there isn't a powerful there's no kind of powerful country, single country in the region. That's the reason why the United States went after Iraq back in the early 90s in the Gulf War. That's the reason the United States, the Bush, the first Bush, H.W. Bush, that's the reason why he lied to Saudi Arabia that Iraq was about to attack Saudi Arabia. It was to get American forces in that region, and American forces haven't left that region since then. What better way to protect America's assets? America's asset is oil. Not because we can't get oil anywhere else. We can. But because Saudi Arabia and OPEC is under America's thumb to make sure that they get cash, American dollars, for their oil, thereby propping up the American dollar. I have had videos about this before, and many of you don't seem who come at me don't seem to understand that I'm not supporting Saudi Arabia. I'm simply stating facts. This is what you deal with when you grow up. You know, you start dealing with facts. All right. Committing the same mistakes. The West has sought change in secular regimes in Iraq. Here you go. I hadn't even read this part yet. The West has sought change in secular regimes in Iraq, Libya, and Syria, harming civilians and supporting so-called moderate rebels, says Michel Monachmin, co-founder of the leader of the Belgian People's Party. Those rebels turn out to be Islamists worse than the regime in place, he added. It doesn't matter to the United States of America about what... It doesn't... Look, folks, the American government doesn't give a damn about how radical these Muslims are as long as they're under the American thumb. That's just common sense. RT. The militants in Aleppo have already lost almost 70% of their territory, yet it hasn't stopped their aggressiveness as they have stepped into the counterattacks. Do you think they still have a chance of repelling the government forces? Michel Madrakamin. I'm not privy to the exact situation on the ground, but I can see that we have a real game changer for months now, where the official Syrian regime, helped by Russia, is clearly winning this war. I think that the West and the U.S., we should take into consideration this reality and adopt our vision, our objective to this new situation indeed. RT. A joint statement was released yesterday by the leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the UK, and US, where they condemned the actions of the Syrian government and its supporters. What do you think of the timing of this report that was issued? MM. I think it is unfortunate because they are committing the same mistake that we have committed in the West for the last 10 to 15 years. We have sought change in secular regimes in Iraq, Libya, and Syria with the result that we see today. We have harmed, we have supported so-called moderate rebels, armed them, and we have seen that these rebels turn out to be Islamists worse than the regime in place. Unfortunately, this kind of statement does not help and do not take into consideration the reality on the ground. We should find the objective. Syria is a very complex situation with a lot of interest involved, obviously. It is difficult to know or to define what we really want, but we can at least define what we really do not want. And we don't want an ISIS stronghold. We don't want an Al-Qaeda stronghold. We don't want even strongholds for so-called moderates that turn out to be ultimately fanatics. I think that Europe and the U.S. should adopt to this reality and should change strategic goals. Well, let's put this more realistically. You and I, as American citizens, or those of you who are in the West, we don't want this. We don't want ISIS strongholds. We don't want Al-Qaeda. But I can tell you our governments do. Our governments do. Because as long as there's continuous war and strife in this area, they can't go against the West. You understand, this is why ISIS was created by the CIA. This is the reason why these people were backed at one point or another by the United States of America, including Osama bin Laden at one point during the Iran and Iraq conflict. That was perfect for the United States during the 80s. Iran and Iraq at each other's throats. But we now have a man coming into office that is going to throw everything on its head. We are not going to see foreign policy that we have seen in this region since this region was carved up after World War I. We're not going to see that anymore. Guarantee it. I guarantee it. Just like I guaranteed that Donald Trump would be president. I guarantee you he is going to be president of the world one day. I guarantee it. This is Shindo. You all have a good Thursday.